Okay, good morning and welcome to this morning's meeting of the DMRC. As usual, it will be held using the Council's hybrid protocol. So if I could remind members who are remote to put their sound to silent, if they want to speak, to put up their electronic hand, and for elected members, you must keep your cameras on so that we can see that you're still there. The meeting will be recorded and broadcast live on the Council's YouTube channel. We'll start with the apologies and substitutions.
Thank you, Convener. No apologies.
And move on to declarations of interest or statements of transparency. Okay, I'm not seeing any there, so we'll progress to item 3, the minutes of the previous meeting. This was the meeting held on the 31st of January. Are these minutes correct? Okay, right, thanks for that. We'll move on to the piece of business for today, which is item 4, 45 Ireland Street, Carnoustie, and we'll hand over to Ms Milne, our planning advisor, on this one.
Thank you, Convener. I will just share my presentation with you. Hopefully this is all set up, so it should just all work. Famous last words. All right, so the case in front of members of the DMRC today seeks the review for a refusal of an application for planning permission for the change of use of garden ground to allow for the siting of a caravan for use as a short-term let at 45 Ireland Street, Carnoustie. As the work has already taken place, the application is in retrospect. The application relates to an area of ground measuring around 85 square metres in an area to the east of the house, but 45 Ireland Street, which sits between Ireland Street to the north and the main East Coast Railway line to the south. You can see the site plan here. So the blue line indicates the extent of 45 Ireland Street, and then the red line is the site for planning permission. And you can see the railway line to the south, and that's Ireland Street that runs along the top of it to the north. And this is just a slightly clearer plan, just a zoomed in version. So again, you can see the extent of the red line in relation to Ireland Street, 45 Ireland Street, the main house. So the site is within a residential area characterised by single-storey houses close to or immediately adjoining the road, with roof ridges running parallel to the street. The caravan measures approximately 3 metres wide by 12 metres long, with a shallow pitched roof that runs perpendicular to the street. It occupies a significant portion of the site, which is small compared with other properties in the area. The site taken up by the caravan, the red line is small in comparison to the plot sizes and other properties in the street. The caravan is on site and has been since approximately November 2023. It was initially used as a short-term let, advertised through Airbnb, but the applicants advised that more recently it has been occupied by a family member as a place of temporary residence. The applicant wishes to resume use of the caravan as a short-term let accommodation and seeks to regularise such use through this planning application, which is for permission to use the land for the siting of the caravan and for use as a short-term let. Members should be aware that this application is the result of an enforcement notice issued on the 19th of July 2024, requiring the removal of the caravan from the land and to cease and desist the use of the land for the siting of a caravan within 60 days of the date of the notice. This enforcement notice also asserts the use of the land and occupation of the caravan as independent residential accommodation and or short-term let is contrary to the development plan. This enforcement notice was appealed to the Scottish Government in August 2024, and the appeal was dismissed. And the decision was upheld that the enforcement notice should be in place as of the 31st of October 2024. So again, given 60 days for the use to cease and the caravan to be removed. This planning history is a material consideration in the determination of this application. I can confirm I've had no previous involvement in the application and I have no conflict of interest relative to the case, applicant or any interested party. The case officer's report, notice of appeal and other information is in the papers in front of members. And then the rest of the presentation. I've got some photographs. So you can see here the top right and the bottom left is the caravan from Ireland Street. So you can see the house on the right is the address 45 Ireland Street, and then the caravan sits adjacent to it. Oh, sorry. So again, this is on Ireland Street. So the bottom left is looking west along the street from the junction with the next street along. And then looking in the opposite direction, you can just see in the curve of the corner there, you can see the house and then the caravan just beyond. And then this is from Tayside Street, so the other side of the railway line. Again, you can see the house is the bottom left picture. The house is immediately on the left as we look at it. The caravan sits, and then just a photograph from slightly further along looking back. And I think, yep, and that's all the photographs. So that's the end of the presentation. Also, conditions have been suggested by the development management should committee wish to approve the application. And that is the end of that. That is the end of the presentation.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Any questions for Ms Milne or any other officers that might be on the call? I'm not seeing any questions. Maybe if I could just ask one. So the councillor objecting to the presence of the caravan and the fact it's being used for short-term lets, that these are both effectively contrary to the development plan. Is that what we're saying?
Sorry. Yeah, well, certainly the application planning permission was put in, and that it was refused by the officer on the grounds that it's contrary to the development plan. But obviously that's for a committee to make a decision about today. So
the objection isn't just that it's being used as a short-term let, it's also the view is that the caravan itself is contrary to the development plan. I mean, if the caravan was sitting there and never used, we would still be, the council would still be objecting. Is that right?
Well, excuse me, certainly the officer in the report of handling, yes, had refused it on the grounds that it's because it's a like basically it's a house, because it's a completely independent from the main building. So it's basically, despite the fact it's a caravan, it would be treated as if it were someone building a house in their garden. And yes, that their assessment of it is that it's contrary to policy.
Okay, that's clear. Thanks for clarifying that. The additional material we've got here, the Appendix 3 and Appendix 4, are members. Do members have any view on that material, whether we should consider it or not? Does it add anything to the whole case?
We would consider that anyway, because it's the 3 and 4 of the extra lodged representations.
Yeah, okay. I'm advised we should consider it anyway, so it's there if you find it useful. Okay. No other questions for any other officers? Oh, sorry, Councillor Dorn. Councillor Durno.
Yeah, thanks, convener. I just want to check that the short-term let licence hasn't been put through as devolved. It would still have to come to licensing. It's not been put through yet. Can I just check?
Well, does anyone know that or not?
Yes, a short-term let would require a licence. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not been put through already though. It's not come to committee, so it hasn't been put through through the officers without coming to committee. Not that you know of. No, sorry, it's a bit confusing. That makes sense.
Sorry, I don't. I mean, I would assume. I don't know how this works, but I would assume that it would have to come through a committee. But I don't know. Can councillors? I don't. Maybe a legal can help us here. Can officers?
Yeah. Sarah's on the call. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, sorry, thank you, convener. I don't think it's one that we're aware of. I think regardless of whether there's a planning application or a licence application, you know, those two elements would sit separately anyway. So even if the short-term let application came to committee, that would sit separate to the request for planning permission. So 2 separate areas, and whilst one may affect the other, they would still need to be considered on their own merit. So I would suggest that any licensing application in terms of short-term let would just sit separately.
Thanks for confirming that, Sarah.
That just to clarify, we just have to look at this on its merits and ignore anything that may or may not have happened at licensing. This is a planning matter, and the papers are in front of us. So if there's no further questions for officers, do elected members have enough information now to consider this case? Okay, we're all happy. We've got enough information. Okay, we'll just go round the table and seek members' views. We'll start with Councillor Dorn.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree with the officer's opinion on this one from the first report of handling, and read through all the information as always. And I don't know if there's at any point we could mention the graffiti that's reported in the comments as well, because that isn't acceptable, although it's completely separate to the making a decision on the application. I just thought it was worth mentioning that, and whether or not there's anything that is done about that in terms of management of the development. But yeah, I agree with the officer's conclusion on this. I think they've got this right, so I wouldn't want to let this appeal go through.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Beattie.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Doran, and I agree with the officer's interpretation of policies. I disagree with Mr. Lindsay, the applicant's interpretation of MPF policies 14 and 30. I think the officer have got it spot on, and I would be for rejecting this appeal.
Okay, thanks. And Councillor Durno.
Goodness, I'm going to be totally opposite this morning. I'm going to go with the policy 15 and policy 30 for the local living for 20-minute neighbourhoods, and policy 30 for tourism, and the TC 16 and local development plan as it's within the boundaries. And I don't think it will start a trend in residential caravans siting in people's gardens, as these vans are very expensive to buy and transport to sites. And this van has been situated for a wee while with no issues from Network Rail or environmental health there. It's not got on-street parking, and it hasn't moved in the recent bad storm. So I am actually going to go and see, maybe if the outside's tidied up, it would look a lot better. But I don't think. I think Carnoustie needs places for people to stay, because obviously with the golf, and I think we should go with this, and I don't think it will set a precedent. But that's my opinion. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Durno. Councillor McLaren.
Yes, thank you, convener. No, I agree with the planning officer's decision, and I would refuse this appeal.
Okay, and Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, convener. This is not a temporary structure on site for a housing renovation or anything which would be acceptable, but a long-term residence plumbed into the main sewage and water, and for the purpose of short-term lets. It does not fit the character of the rest of the street, and I agree with the officers. I would not pass this appeal.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Nicholl. And yeah, for just for the sake of completeness, I would agree with the majority of the committee. I think the officers have got this right. I think, as the report says, if we were to approve this on appeal, it potentially sets a precedent that there's, static caravans in every house in the town or every street, and I think that would that would be from a point of view of the aesthetics, if nothing else. There's no use having rules about smart neighbourhoods if we then allow unregulated development in very small plots. So I think the officers have got this right. I don't know, Councillor Durno, I don't think you've got a seconder by the looks of it, so I will just say...
It doesn't look like that.
I'll just say then that planning application 24/00338/full, we are rejecting the appeal because of what's written in the report by officers, which we agree with. And I think at that we'll say that's the end of the meeting, and I wish you a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Convener.
Stop the live stream, please.